Welcome to Unheard Stories. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments. Where are you all watching from? I love hearing about the different places our stories reach, so don't be shy. Drop your location below. The night was alive with music, laughter, and sparkling lights as Alex stepped into the bustling banquet hall. He was there to surprise Samantha, his wife of 10 years, at her company's annual party. But what greeted him wasn't her warm smile or a quick hug. It was a sight that stopped him cold. Across the room, beneath the shifting glow of colorful lights, Alex saw Samantha standing too close to her boss, Ethan. Their heads tilted together, their bodies inches apart. Alex felt his stomach drop, his pulse quickening. He blinked, hoping he was mistaken, but the scene played out in undeniable clarity. Ethan's hand slid down Samantha's back, and then, without hesitation, their lips met in a kiss far too intimate for mere colleagues. Time seemed to freeze. The hum of conversation and the laughter around him faded into a dull roar. Alex's breath caught in his throat, his chest tightening as betrayal surged through him. His fists clenched at his sides, and a bitter wave of anger followed the initial shock. His mind raced, piecing together every late night, every secretive text, every excuse Samantha had given over the past months. He didn't hesitate. His legs moved of their own accord, cutting through the crowd until he stood just feet away from them. So this is what late meetings look like? His voice rang out, louder than he intended, silencing those nearby. Samantha jumped back from Ethan as if she'd been burned. Her eyes widened in panic as she stammered, "Alex, this isn't what it looks like." Alex laughed bitterly. "Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what it is." Ethan tried to step in, but Alex's glare made him freeze. "Stay out of this," Alex snapped, his voice icy. He turned back to Samantha, his tone cutting through the thick silence. "I trusted you. I built a life with you, and this is what I get." Samantha's eyes filled with tears, but Alex didn't waver. "You've made your choice, Samantha. Now I'm making mine. I want a divorce." His words hung in the air, the finality of them slicing through the tension. Without another glance, Alex turned and walked out, the weight of betrayal fueling his every step. Behind him, the party buzzed with murmurs, but he didn't care. His world had just been turned upside down, and there was no going back. Alex sat alone in the darkened living room, the events of the night replaying in his mind like a cruel, broken record. He stared blankly at the untouched dinner he had prepared hours before, the candles now pools of hardened wax. His chest ached with the weight of betrayal, anger simmering just beneath the surface. How had it come to this? How had the life they built together fallen apart so completely? Alex and Samantha had been together for a decade, a relationship built on shared dreams and quiet stability. Alex, ever the steady and reliable partner, worked as an architect, finding solace in the precision and order of his designs. Samantha, by contrast, was vibrant and ambitious, a project manager at a growing tech firm. She was a force of nature, lighting up every room she entered, a quality Alex had always admired, until tonight. Their life seemed idyllic on the surface. A beautiful home, laughter over shared meals, and quiet evenings watching their favorite shows. But beneath it all, cracks had begun to form. Alex had noticed it months ago. Samantha becoming more distracted, her phone buzzing late at night with messages she'd quickly hide. There were excuses about late meetings, unexplained absences, and a sudden obsession with looking her best before leaving for work. Alex had chosen to ignore the signs, convincing himself that Samantha was simply stressed from work. He wanted to believe in the woman he had loved for so many years, even when the lingering doubt gnawed at him. He had tried to rekindle their bond, planning surprise dinners and heartfelt conversations, but Samantha always seemed just out of reach, like a shadow slipping through his fingers. That night at the party had shattered the fragile facade he'd clung to. The image of Samantha in Ethan's arms was seared into his memory. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that their life, their love, had been a lie for far longer than he'd been willing to admit. The next morning, Alex found himself pacing the empty apartment. Samantha hadn't come home. He wanted answers, but more than that, he wanted to know when their love had died, and why he hadn't seen it coming. The silence in their once lively home was deafening, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still to come. Alex couldn't let it rest. The betrayal was bad enough, but something about Samantha's behavior gnawed at him. He began to piece together the fragments of her lies. That night, as he went through their shared office space, he found a folder tucked away in a drawer Samantha usually kept locked. The contents made his stomach turn. Inside were contracts, financial documents, and emails, all pointing to fraudulent activities involving Samantha and Ethan. Alex's name appeared in several places, tied to transactions he knew nothing about. His hands trembled as he read through the papers, a cold rage rising in him. This wasn't just infidelity. Samantha was involved in something much darker, something that could destroy not just their marriage but his reputation too. When Samantha finally came home late the next evening, she was startled to find Alex waiting in the living room, the incriminating folder on the coffee table between them. "What is this, Samantha?" Alex's voice was low, dangerously calm. Her eyes darted to the folder, and she froze. "Alex, I can explain." "Explain? You've got one chance," Alex snapped, his eyes narrowing. "Start talking." Samantha sank onto the couch, wringing her hands. "It's not what it looks like. Stop lying to me." Alex slammed his fist on the table, making her jump. "I found the papers. I see my name tied to this mess. You cheated on me with your boss, and now I'm part of whatever illegal game you're playing. So, start from the beginning." "Why?" Tears filled Samantha's eyes, but Alex's hardened expression gave her no room for sympathy. She took a shaky breath. "Ethan, he manipulated me. He found a way to trap me months ago. I didn't know what I was signing at first, and by the time I realized, it was too late. He threatened me, Alex. He said if I didn't cooperate, I'd lose my job and my career. And the affair?" Alex's voice was cold, cutting. "I thought I could control him, keep him from ruining me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to lose everything we built, Alex. I didn't know what else to do." Alex's laugh was bitter. "So, your solution was to lie, cheat, and drag me into your mess?" "I was scared," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want this." Alex stood, his glare sharp enough to cut. "Scared or not, you made your choices, Samantha. And now you're going to face the consequences." He grabbed the folder and walked out, leaving her sobbing on the couch. The weight of her betrayal and Ethan's manipulation hung heavy in the air. But Alex knew he couldn't stop now. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. The next morning, Alex sat in a cafe with his longtime friend, Eric, a sharp and determined lawyer. Alex laid out the documents he'd found, the weight of the situation clear in his voice. "This isn't just about my marriage anymore. Ethan's dragged me into his scheme. I need to clear my name." Eric studied the papers carefully, his expression darkening. "This is serious, Alex. If Ethan's using your name on these transactions, you could be implicated. We need to act fast. Gather more evidence and build a case before he can cover his tracks." Alex nodded. "What about Samantha? She's key to this. She's directly involved and knows more than you do." "You'll need her cooperation," Eric replied. Reluctantly, Alex reached out to Samantha. When they met in Eric's office, she looked exhausted, her usual confidence replaced by apprehension. "What do you need from me?" she asked quietly. "The truth," Alex said firmly. "No more lies, no more half-truths. You tell Eric everything Ethan's done and everything you've done." As Samantha began to speak, the scope of Ethan's deceit became clearer. He had been embezzling money from the company for years, using Samantha as a pawn to sign off on transactions under false pretenses. When she realized the extent of the fraud, Ethan threatened to expose her as a willing participant unless she complied with his demands. The affair, she admitted with a trembling voice, was her desperate attempt to keep Ethan placated and buy herself time. "I never wanted to hurt you, Alex," she said, tears falling freely. "I thought I could fix it without destroying everything." Eric leaned forward. "Do you have anything that directly ties Ethan to the fraud? Emails, messages, anything. Samantha hesitated before pulling out her phone. I saved screenshots of his threats and some documents he sent me. I didn't know if I'd ever need them. But now, as Eric reviewed the evidence, he nodded. This is good. We can use this. But be prepared, Ethan won't go down without a fight. He'll try to discredit you both. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Alex and Samantha worked with Eric to gather everything they could, from financial records to email chains. Ethan, sensing the walls closing in, began sending veiled threats to Samantha, warning her to back off. Despite the fear, Alex was resolute. He wouldn't let Ethan ruin him or anyone else without a fight. The tension mounted as the court date approached. The stakes were high, and Alex knew the outcome would determine not just his future but Samantha's as well. The betrayal still burned, but now it was overshadowed by a singular goal. Bringing Ethan to justice, the courtroom buzzed with quiet murmurs as Alex, Samantha, and Eric took their seats. Across the room, Ethan sat with his lawyer, his confident smirk betraying no hint of the pressure he was under. But Alex could see the cracks. His clenched fists, the faint sheen of sweat on his brow. The prosecution opened by presenting the evidence Alex and Samantha had painstakingly gathered. Emails, bank records, and testimony painted a damning picture of Ethan's manipulation and fraud. As the details unfolded, the room grew tense. Ethan's lawyer attempted to poke holes in the evidence, but the paper trail was airtight. Then it was Samantha's turn to testify. She walked to the stand, her hands trembling slightly as she took the oath. Her voice was steady but emotional as she recounted how Ethan had drawn her into his web. At first, I thought it was legitimate. But when I realized what was happening, I was already trapped. He threatened to ruin me if I didn't comply. Samantha paused, glancing briefly at Alex. I made mistakes. I lied to my husband, and I let Ethan manipulate me. But I'm here now, telling the truth, because I won't let him hurt anyone else. Ethan's lawyer tried to discredit her, accusing her of being a willing participant, but Samantha remained composed. I have the messages, the threats he sent me. This wasn't about choice, it was survival. When Ethan took the stand, his demeanor shifted. His confidence cracked as he tried to spin the narrative, blaming Samantha for initiating the fraud and seducing him into compliance. But his cold, calculated tone only reinforced the image of a manipulative mastermind. The prosecution countered his claims with hard evidence, exposing his lies at every turn. As the trial reached its climax, the judge delivered the verdict. Ethan was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and extortion. His sentence was severe, years in prison and the end of his career. The courtroom erupted in whispers as he was led away, his smirk replaced by a defeated glare. Samantha, while found guilty of complicity, received a lighter sentence due to her cooperation. Her role as a whistleblower and the evidence she provided were critical in bringing Ethan down. Alex watched it all unfold with a mix of relief and lingering sadness. Justice had been served, but the scars of betrayal would remain. As he left the courtroom, he felt a sense of closure, knowing that, for the first time in months, the truth had finally prevailed. The days after the trial were a blur for Alex. The weight he had carried for so long seemed lighter, but the scars of betrayal lingered. Sitting in his now quiet apartment, he thought back to the life he and Samantha had built, the dreams they had shared, and how it had all unraveled. Alex sold the apartment, feeling the need for a fresh start. He moved to a smaller, simpler space on the edge of town, a place where he could focus on himself and rebuild. For the first time in years, he prioritized his own happiness. He reconnected with friends, began jogging in the mornings, and even took up a hobby he had long ignored: painting. Each stroke of color on the canvas felt like a small piece of healing. Samantha, meanwhile, began her journey of redemption. She completed her community service hours at a women's support center, helping others recognize the signs of manipulation and emotional abuse. While facing judgment from those around her was difficult, Samantha found a sense of purpose in her work. Slowly, she began to forgive herself and understand the depth of her mistakes. One crisp fall afternoon, Alex was walking in the park, lost in thought, when he noticed a woman sitting on a bench reading a book. Her warm smile caught his attention as their eyes met. Her name was Mia, and their conversation started naturally, flowing with ease. She was a schoolteacher with an infectious optimism that made Alex feel lighter. For the first time since his world had crumbled, he felt a flicker of hope, a possibility of trusting again. Their relationship grew slowly, without the weight of past expectations. Mia's kindness and authenticity helped Alex begin to see that love, even after betrayal, was still possible. It wasn't about forgetting the past but learning from it and moving forward. Alex's journey wasn't easy, but it taught him a profound lesson. Betrayal doesn't define who you are. It's how you rise from it that matters. Samantha's mistakes left a deep wound, but through her redemption, she showed that even the most broken paths can lead to growth. Ethan's fall was a stark reminder of what happens when deception is your foundation. This story isn't just about infidelity. It's about the choices we make and the consequences we face. It's a reminder that trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But healing is possible if we allow ourselves to grow from the pain. Thank you for joining us today on Unheard Stories. We believe in sharing narratives that uncover the raw truth of relationships. The good, the bad, and the transformative. What did you think of Alex's journey? Could you have forgiven Samantha? Or would you have made a different choice? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more impactful stories. Your support helps us continue bringing you these eye-opening tales. Until next time, take care and remember, trust is fragile, but strength comes from facing the truth. See you in the next story.